Hey everyone, welcome back to Williamson Ridge Outdoors. Today we are in the truck again. I'm heading to the gravel yard. I'm going to get some limestone to put in our ditch that goes along our driveway. So I ditched along the edge of the driveway a while back, and now all the mud and debris washes down the hill and clogs up the culvert at the bottom of the hill. So it floods over the culvert and runs in the neighbor's yard. So I'm hoping that if I fill that ditch up with some big stone, that it'll slow the water down, it'll keep the erosion from happening so bad, and it will stop clogging up the culvert down at the bottom of the hill. We've got the PJ dump trailer back there behind us hooked up to the bulletproof hitch. So I figured I would talk about the diesel exhaust brake in my Chevy Silverado. This is a 2023 model with the Duramax Diesel. This is not the updated 2024 that got the engine refreshed. This still has the 445 horsepower and 910 foot-pounds of torque. So everybody talks about the GM exhaust brake not being strong enough, but I've not experienced that at all. The experience I've had with it is that sometimes it's actually almost too aggressive. And what I mean by that is, sometimes the exhaust brake shifts down or the transmission shifts down whenever the exhaust brake is on more than what I want it to. And then whenever you get to, say, the bottom of a grade, it doesn't shift back out of the gear that it's like revved out in. You could be up to 2,500 to 3,000 RPMs with the exhaust brake on, and you start giving it the gas again, and it doesn't go ahead and shift and let you have, the truck back, basically. It continues to rev, and you have to rev it up quite a bit to go ahead and get it to shift out of that gear. So I'm going to go get 5 tons of gravel. So I'm going to have, between the trailer and the load, I'm going to have 14,000 pounds behind the truck, and I've got a big steep grade that I can demonstrate this on. Let's go get loaded up, and then on the way back I'll kind of talk about that a little bit more. So we got loaded up with exactly 5 tons, and we're pulling a hill, kind of picking up speed right here from the gravel yard. But this is actually one of the things that I wanted to show also. I did turn my exhaust brake on, and as I top this hill, I just let off the gas, and I'm actually picking up speed right now, coasting. If I would touch the brakes right now, the exhaust brake actually would kick in and keep me from gaining any more speed, which I'm going to go ahead and hit the brakes right now. You see it shift down, and now it's not going to let me gain anything past about 50 miles an hour. And you can see it slowing back down. And I'm not touching the brakes at all. My foot's up completely off the brakes. Now I'm going to start getting back on the gas a little bit. Now usually, now that we're kind of leveled off, you have to hold the gas for a pretty good while, and you can see where the RPMs are staying, and now it finally drops down. So I can't hardly get over how well this truck actually tows. I've started off with some of my first impressions of this truck and not being really all that impressed with the diesel power and all that. But the more I drive it, the more my mind is changing on that kind of stuff, because it's just not the same kind of power that it normally is on the gas truck. So the power on the gas truck comes on a little bit quicker, and on this diesel, it's more of a slower, lumbering type power and torque buildup. It doesn't come on instantly, and you kind of have to wait on it to build, but once it builds, it maintains it. It just does a great job of maintaining speed, or if you're trying to maintain speed on a hill or whatever, then that does really well. And as far as the exhaust brake goes, maybe I feel that this is really good because I didn't have an exhaust brake on the gas truck, and that's something that gas trucks don't have. My opinions here are kind of biased on what I feel with the Chevy versus what I didn't have an exhaust brake on my gas truck. So I feel a really big difference between that truck and this truck. So we're crossing the hill going back towards the house. Now I want to show you how hard of a pull this is. I'm only doing 20 miles an hour, but this is a pretty steep hill, and it's just as steep on the other side. So you're seeing that the truck's having to really shift down to pull that. When we cross the other side, it's going to start gaining speed. And you can see it picking up. If I touch the brakes, it's going to shift down. And that exhaust brake really kicks in. And you see it start really slowing me down once it shifted down that gear again. Now we're level back off. It's about the best I can explain the way that the diesel exhaust brake works in the GM vehicles is that it is not proactive, it is reactive. If you just go down a hill and let off the gas, it doesn't automatically just hold you at that speed. You actually have to do something to let it know that you're wanting to maintain that speed or slow down. So when you hit the brakes, that kind of is like the cue for the transmission and the exhaust brake to say, oh, okay, they don't want to go faster because they're hitting the brakes. So what happens there when you touch the brakes, the truck then reacts to that. The vanes or whatever in the turbo, I think, are a variable type deal. So it can actually add more exhaust brake by adjusting those vanes in the turbo. And then also it can adjust it by shifting down, spooling up the turbos and causing more back pressure from the engine RPMs. So a lot of people say, well, that's just the engine shifting down and not the exhaust brake. But you can plainly feel the difference if you're just in tow haul mode and the engine shifts down. You can feel the difference and the aggressiveness of the downshifts and the braking to slow you down. There's a very noticeable difference, to me anyways, between just being in regular mode, tow haul mode, and then having tow haul mode on and the exhaust brake, because it seems that each step makes the exhaust brake more aggressive, and it also makes your downshifts more aggressive. So everything works in conjunction with each other to really create the back pressure for that exhaust brake to slow you down. So one thing it does not do is it doesn't really help you a lot when you're trying to just come to a stop. So if you're thinking that you're going to hit the brakes and it's going to help you coming up to a stoplight or something, it doesn't. It does shift down a little quicker and might put a little back pressure on it, but there's not a lot there. But with my experience so far, I am very happy with the way that the exhaust brake works. Like I said, it may be because I just didn't have one before that makes a huge difference between the old truck and the new truck. It seems to me that it really helps you where you need it and not so much where you don't. So if you're coming up to a stop, you've got trailer brakes, you've got truck brake. If you get too much braking on your rear tires in certain situations, then it could potentially cause a problem. And I don't know this, but I think that might be why that they don't have that real aggressive braking when you're coming to a stop. Because if you're holding the brakes and then you all of a sudden put a whole bunch of back pressure on your tires, just on your rear tires, there's a potential that you could lose traction and be sliding your back tires. So if you're doing it in a situation where you're on a long grade, it's keeping you from having to use your brakes, not warm up your brakes, not get them hot to where you could potentially have a failure. So we got back with our load of stone. The next video is actually going to be what we're going to be doing with this stone. But I'm going to wrap this one up because, I really want to talk about that diesel exhaust brake. And, again, these are my experiences with going from a gas truck with no exhaust brake, going to a Chevy diesel, and really the differences that I feel between those two trucks. I don't have, you know, an opinion on, you know, the other diesel trucks such as the Ram or the Ford, because I have not experienced them towing. You know, a lot of people say that the Ram is superior to all of them. It is the absolute best. Also, some of the review channels and stuff on YouTube, like TFL Truck, it does the Ike Gauntlet and all that. You know, the Ram does do better than pretty much all those trucks. But it seems like the Chevy and the Ford, you know, it kind of holds true with what I was saying with, you know, once they hit the brakes the first time, then it'll maintain the speed all the way down the hill. And that's the exact experience that I have with it. So I kind of wanted to share that with you, you know, and like, what's the deal with the GM exhaust brake? You know, that's the best way I have to explain it, is that it is a reactive exhaust brake, not a proactive. So I hope this video helped out. If it did, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. It really goes a long way in helping out the channel. So until next time, stay safe, and we'll see you on the next one.